Baby found a German shepherd in a cage drowning in rain. What Baby did next left everyone in tears. Thunder cracked across the sky like the sound of something breaking. The wind howled, pushing sheets of rain sideways, blurring everything outside the windows of the old sedan. Inside, 5-year-old Liam Carter sat in the back seat, his little hands clutching his stuffed fox tightly against his chest. His big brown eyes stared out through the fogged-up glass, watching the world melt into gray. His father, Daniel, was silent, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The storm had come out of nowhere. He leaned forward, squinting through the windshield wipers that struggled to keep up. The streets of their small town were flooded, the gutters overflowing, water reaching up toward porches and storefronts. "Are we almost home, Dad?" Liam asked, his voice small and shaky. "Just a few more minutes, buddy," Daniel said, his voice calm but strained. Daniel wasn't just trying to get them home. He was trying to hold it together. It had only been 3 months since they'd lost his wife. Since Liam had lost his mother, he'd barely spoken for weeks after. Now this storm, this awful night, it felt like the world had forgotten them, left them behind in a flood of grief. As the car turned onto their street, something made Liam sit up straighter, his forehead pressed against the cold window. Through the sheets of rain, something moved. No, something wasn't moving. "Dad, stop the car! Look!" he cried suddenly, pointing toward an alley just beyond their driveway. Daniel hit the brakes, the car jerking to a halt. "What is it?" "There!" Liam's voice trembled. "In the alley. There's a dog." Daniel leaned over to look, his heart already heavy. In the alleyway, almost entirely submerged in muddy water, was a metal cage. Inside, barely visible in the flickering light from a street lamp, was a large German shepherd. The dog was lying down, unmoving, its fur soaked, its eyes barely open. Daniel cursed under his breath. The cage was tilting, about to tip. The water had risen so high that the poor animal's nose was barely above the surface. If they drove away now, the dog wouldn't survive the hour. "Liam, stay in the car," Daniel said firmly, opening his door. The wind nearly tore it from his hand. Liam didn't answer. He was staring at the dog, his bottom lip trembling. "She's going to die." Daniel ran into the floodwaters, cold and fast around his legs. As he reached the cage, the German shepherd lifted its head weakly and whimpered, a broken, desperate sound that cut straight into him. Its amber eyes locked with his, not pleading, just waiting, like it had already accepted its fate. But Liam hadn't. Before Daniel could even call out, Liam had scrambled out of the car, running barefoot through the water toward them. "We can't leave her, Dad! We can't!" he cried. Daniel's heart clenched. In that moment, soaked in rain and grief, he saw it. His son, broken, grieving, small, was trying to save something just as lost as he was. And somehow, that made all the difference. Daniel's heart pounded as he looked from the cage to his son. Tiny barefoot Liam standing in the storm, his soaked pajamas clinging to his thin frame. Rain ran down his cheeks like tears, but his eyes burned with something fierce. Hope. "We can't leave her, Dad. We can't." Daniel swallowed hard, the weight of everything pressing down on him. His wife's death, the storm, the empty house waiting behind them. He nodded once and turned to the cage. The metal was rusted through, the bars bent in places like someone had kicked them. The lock was old but thick, holding fast even when he yanked on the door with all his strength. Inside, the German shepherd gave a soft, painful whimper. Her body trembled, more from exhaustion than cold. She didn't flinch when Daniel reached through the bars. She only leaned her head against his hand, as if begging not to be left behind. Daniel scanned the alley. In the dim light, he spotted a loose brick by the wall and grabbed it, hands numb from the cold. "Hang on, girl," he muttered through clenched teeth, smashing the lock once, twice. On the third hit, it cracked open. The cage door swung wide and the dog collapsed into Daniel's arms. She was heavier than she looked, soaked, starved, her bones sharp beneath her matted fur. Daniel hoisted her up and turned to see Liam already waiting toward him. "I told you to stay in the car," Daniel said, not angry, just scared. Liam didn't stop. He knelt beside the dog, brushing soaked fur from her face. "She's hurt," he whispered, stroking her gently. The dog didn't resist. Her eyes, dull and fading, focused only on the boy. She let out a sigh, a sound of surrender, or maybe relief. Daniel didn't hesitate anymore. He wrapped the dog in his arms as best he could and carried her back to the car, Liam holding the door open and guiding her in like she was made of glass. They laid her across the back seat, rainwater pooling beneath her. Liam sat beside her, one tiny hand resting on her side. "What if she dies?" he asked quietly. Daniel looked at the broken animal in the rearview mirror. He didn't have an answer, but something about the way she trusted them, even in her pain, even as a stranger, it stirred something in him. He reached back and touched Liam's shoulder. "She won't," he said. "We're going to help her." At home, they bundled the dog in every towel they had. She barely moved. Liam refused to leave her side. He brought her his stuffed fox and tucked it beside her. "I think her name is Blitz," Liam whispered. "Like the storm. She's strong." Daniel nodded, kneeling beside him. "Blitz," he repeated, as if saying it made it real. "Okay, Blitz. You're safe now." Liam leaned his head against his father's arm and, for the first time in weeks, smiled. A soft, fleeting smile that made Daniel's throat tighten. The house was quiet now, the storm outside finally beginning to drift away. Rain still tapped gently against the windows, but inside the small living room, it was warm. Daniel had turned on the fireplace, more for comfort than heat. Blitz lay curled on a folded blanket, barely moving, her breathing shallow but steady. Liam sat beside her, wide-eyed and silent, occasionally running his fingers gently along her damp fur. Daniel returned with a bowl of warm water and an old turkey sandwich, the best he could put together at such a late hour. "She hasn't eaten in days," Liam said, watching her anxiously. Daniel nodded. "Let's see if she'll try." He placed the sandwich near her snout. At first, Blitz didn't move. Then her nose twitched. Slowly, almost painfully, she lifted her head and took a single, trembling bite. Liam gasped with joy. "She's eating!" Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Yeah, buddy, she is." They spent the next hour gently drying her fur with towels, careful around the deep scars crisscrossing her sides. One of her back legs was stiff, too stiff, and Daniel winced when he saw the way she limped, as if it had healed wrong a long time ago. "She's been hurt," Liam said, his voice small. "Really bad?" Daniel didn't respond right away. His mind raced with questions. Who did this to her? Where did she come from? But one thing was certain. Blitz hadn't gotten this way on her own. Someone had failed her. That night, Daniel tucked Liam into bed. But just as he started to leave, Liam looked up. "Can Blitz sleep in here? Please?" Daniel hesitated. He wasn't sure if it was safe, if the dog would get sick or worse in the night. But then he saw the look in Liam's eyes, the same look he'd had at his mother's funeral, that aching silence behind the tears. "Okay," Daniel said softly. "Just this once." Liam beamed. Blitz, sensing the shift, limped over and settled beside the bed with a soft grunt. Liam reached down, his fingers curling around her ear. In moments, the boy was asleep, his hand still resting on her head. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching them. The storm outside had passed, but something else had shifted too. Something quiet and profound. For the first time since he'd lost her, Daniel felt like the house wasn't so empty anymore. And as he looked at the scarred, broken dog curled beside his son, he whispered, "Thank you." Daniel stood in the doorway a moment longer, watching his son sleep with his hand gently resting on Blitz's head. Her tail thumped weakly once, as if she knew she was no longer alone. "Thank you," Daniel whispered again, the words catching in his throat. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, catching in the soft tufts of Blitz's fur. She was still there beside Liam, eyes closed, breathing slow but steady. Daniel rubbed his temples, exhausted from the emotional night, and reached for the phone. He didn't know much about dogs, especially not ones with wounds like these, but he knew she needed help, real help. He called Dr. Shaw, the town's only vet clinic, and explained everything he could through the haze of worry and sleep deprivation. "There's a dog," Daniel said. "She's injured. We found her during the storm, in a cage, half drowned. My son, he won't let her go. When he mentioned money, Dr. Shaw interrupted gently. Just bring her in, Mr. Carter. We'll figure the rest out later. An hour later, Daniel gently lifted Blitz into the back seat. Liam rode beside her, one small hand resting on her paw the entire way. Blitz didn't move much, but every time Daniel glanced in the mirror, he saw her eyes, alert now, as if afraid this kindness might vanish at any moment. Dr. Shaw met them at the clinic door. A tall woman with warm eyes and steady hands, she crouched to greet Blitz and nodded silently before ushering them inside. In the sterile brightness of the exam room, Daniel watched nervously as Dr. Shaw examined Blitz. She moved with a gentleness that surprised him, her hands firm but calm as she checked the broken leg, felt along the ribs and looked into Blitz's tired amber eyes. She's malnourished, severe heartworm, and this leg, she paused, shaking her head. It was broken and never set. She's been in pain for a long time. Liam stood beside the table, his small fingers gripping the edge. Will she be okay? Dr. Shaw gave him a soft smile. She's a fighter, sweetheart, but she's been through hell. Her tone darkened. I think she was used for dogfighting. The scars, the behavior, it all fits. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. He looked down at Blitz, at her gaunt frame, the way her ears twitched every time a sound echoed. Liam didn't hesitate. She's ours now, right? The vet's expression shifted. There's a 10-day holding period. It's the law, just in case someone comes forward to claim her. Daniel's jaw clenched. Someone who let her rot in a cage during a flood? Someone who broke her and left her to die? Blitz turned her head slowly and nudged Liam's hand with her nose. He leaned down and whispered something in her ear. She gave a soft, almost inaudible whine. Dr. Shaw looked at them both, then nodded slowly. We'll keep her here for the night. She's safe now. But Daniel knew safety could be temporary, and the past had a way of clawing its way back. He just didn't know how soon it would arrive. Daniel knew safety could be temporary, and the past had a way of clawing its way back. He just didn't know how soon it would arrive. Blitz stayed at the clinic for 2 nights. Dr. Shaw gave her fluids, started treatment for heartworm, and wrapped her fragile leg in a brace. Liam visited every day after school, reading stories to her from his backpack, even when she slept. He never once asked for cartoons or toys, just Blitz. She listens to me, Dad, he said quietly on the ride home one evening. Even when she closes her eyes, I think she hears my voice. Daniel smiled, though it was tight at the edges. I think you're right, buddy. On the 3rd day, Dr. Shaw called. She's strong, healing faster than I expected. You can take her home, but keep her calm. No stares or rough play. Liam could barely contain his excitement. He helped Daniel spread blankets beside his bed and filled a bowl with clean water. When Blitz finally limped back through their front door, tail wagging slowly, it felt like something sacred had returned. For the first time in months, their little house felt like home again. Then came the knock. Daniel was in the kitchen when he heard it, 3 hard pounds on the front door. Liam was in the living room, curled up with Blitz, reading her Charlotte's Web. Daniel opened the door cautiously, and there stood a man he'd never seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, with tattoos crawling up his neck, and a thick leather jacket soaked from rain. His eyes were cold and sharp, but it was the leash dangling from his hand that made Daniel's stomach turn. That's my dog, the man growled. Daniel stepped outside, closing the door behind him. I don't think so. I've got papers. She was stolen from me. She was left in a cage during a flood, near death. The man sneered. So? Still mine. I trained her, raised her. Daniel's voice dropped. You broke her. Inside, Blitz had already picked up on the tension. A deep, rumbling growl escaped her chest as she forced herself up and hobbled to the door. Liam stood frozen behind her. The man leaned to the side to peek through the window. Yeah, that's her. Name's Roxy. Worth $5 grand. Easy. Daniel's blood ran cold. Get off my property. At that moment, Blitz barked. Loud, fierce, protective. She wedged herself between the door and Liam, trembling but ready. The man took a step forward. You gonna call the cops, tough guy? Daniel didn't answer, but the sirens did. A neighbor had seen the stranger approach and called it in. Red and blue lights flickered down the street. The man backed away. "This ain't over," he hissed before disappearing into the night. Later, Sergeant Reyes arrived and identified him as Marcus Voss, a known dog fighter under investigation. "He won't stop," she warned. "Dogs like Blitz. They're valuable to people like him." That night, Daniel sat by Liam's bed long after he fell asleep. Blitz was curled at his side, still growling in her dreams. She had protected them. Now it was Daniel's turn to protect her. No matter what it cost, she had protected them. Now it was Daniel's turn to protect her, no matter what it cost. The next few days were tense. Daniel double-checked the locks every night. He installed a camera above the front door and kept his phone charged at all times. Blitz stayed close to Liam, following him like a shadow. Her body was still healing, but her instincts were sharper than ever. She knew danger hadn't passed. Sergeant Reyes kept in touch. "We've got Voss on trespassing and animal cruelty," she said on the phone, "but the court system's slow. He's out on bail." Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. "So he could come back. He could try, but you're not alone in this. Just be ready." The next morning, Liam was tying his shoelaces when he suddenly looked up. "Dad, do bad people ever stop being bad?" Daniel hesitated. "Sometimes they do, but sometimes you just have to make sure they don't hurt anyone else." Liam nodded solemnly, then reached down and hugged Blitz. She licked his cheek softly, as if promising she wouldn't let anything touch him. That afternoon, Daniel heard the doorbell ring while Liam was napping. He glanced through the peephole, and his blood froze. Marcus Voss. Again. But this time, he wasn't yelling. He stood calmly, dressed in a button-down shirt and holding a thick manila envelope. Something about his stillness made Daniel's skin crawl. Daniel opened the door halfway. "You're trespassing." "I'm not here to fight," Voss said, voice smooth like oil. "I brought legal proof. Her name's Roxy. She's mine." He handed over a folder of paperwork, vet records, a pedigree certificate, even vaccination forms. It all looked legitimate. Too legitimate. "You forged these," Daniel said. "Try proving that in court." Blitz came limping down the hall. The moment she saw Voss, she froze. Her ears went back. Her eyes darkened. Then she growled, low and primal. "She remembers me," Voss said smugly. "That proves it. She remembers what you did to her." Daniel stepped outside, blocking the doorway. "Leave, now." Voss's expression shifted, from smug to sinister. He pulled out a leash from his coat pocket, the same kind Daniel had seen dogfighters use. Coarse leather with a steel chain. He clicked his tongue. "Come on, Roxy." In an instant, Blitz surged forward, limping but furious. She launched past Daniel with a terrifying bark, clamping onto Voss's sleeve and dragging him down. "Get her off me," he screamed, falling backward into the grass. Daniel grabbed Blitz, holding her close, her chest heaving. Liam had woken up and stood at the door, watching, frozen. Within moments, 2 police cruisers pulled up. Sergeant Reyes jumped out, shouting, "Hands behind your back." Voss tried to protest, but it was too late. Later that evening, Daniel stood with Sergeant Reyes on the porch as Voss was taken away. This time for good. "He forged everything," she confirmed. "He's going away for a long time." Liam came outside and wrapped his arms around Blitz's neck. "You're safe now," he whispered. And this time, they all believed it. "You're safe now," Liam whispered, burying his face into Blitz's warm fur. Daniel stood a few steps behind him, watching the scene unfold with a heavy heart. The flashing red and blue lights of the patrol car faded into the distance, taking Marcus Voss with them. The nightmare was over, at least the worst part of it. Blitz let out a soft, almost relieved whine and gently licked Liam's cheek. Her tail gave a tired thump against the porch boards. It was as if she, too, knew that her past had finally loosened its grip. Inside, the house was quiet again. Daniel made Liam some hot cocoa, while Blitz curled up in her usual spot near the fireplace, the flickering light casting a warm glow across her scarred fur. Liam joined her on the rug, gently stroking behind her ears. "I think she smiles now," Liam said, glancing up at his father. Daniel smiled softly. "Yeah, I think she does." In the weeks that followed, Blitz truly began to heal, not just her body, but her soul. Her appetite returned, and she put on healthy weight. The vet, Dr. Shaw, was amazed at the progress. "She's a fighter," she said during one of the checkups. "But more than that, she's loved. That makes all the difference." At home, Blitz learned simple commands. She was a quick learner, eager to please, especially when Liam was the one giving the instructions. Sit, stay, and gentle became part of their daily rhythm. Blitz followed Liam to the backyard, sat beside him during his homework, and curled at his feet when he fell asleep. One late evening, Daniel passed by Liam's room and paused. The bedroom lights were off, but a flashlight glowed faintly under the covers. He pushed the door open slightly and saw Liam beneath a blanket fort, reading a dog storybook aloud to Blitz, who rested beside him with her eyes half closed. "And then the puppy found her forever home," Liam read, his voice full of warmth. He stopped and looked at Blitz. "That's you, girl. You're home now." Daniel's throat tightened. He thought about how far they had come, from the night of the storm, from the rusted cage, from the fear in Blitz's eyes. He remembered the early days after losing his wife, when Liam barely spoke and cried in his sleep. But now Liam was laughing again, talking, trusting, and Blitz had played a big part in that. He stepped into the room, knelt beside them, and placed a hand on Blitz's back. Her ears twitched, and she looked up, eyes soft and full of something Daniel hadn't seen in her before. Gratitude. She didn't need to speak. It was all there, in the way she leaned into his touch, the way she stayed close to Liam, the way her tail wagged gently in her sleep. Blitz had been saved from darkness, but so had they. And together, they were building something stronger than scars. They were building family. The Rakutun on